very weird to hear your own biography being told to you. It's the first time I heard it. Very surreal experience. So today I'm giving a speech on engineering change one byte at a time. And it's really geared for the goal being, what's it like to program in an industry, in a commercial environment where people actually pay you to do what you need to do, and what that environment is like. Just some highlights, like for the biography in a much more, let's say, personal sense, right? Went to Albion College, I was a chemistry major, I like to blow stuff up. I worked as a software engineer, project manager, customer support, sales engineer, a mentor, development team lead, recruitment, and currently I'm the head of the department at Flex. We've been around for 15 years. We've been doing cloud solutions, or SaaS solutions, software as a service, SaaS, since 2001, way before it was cool to do them. In fact, marketing, I'm sure, will come up with a new phrase in the next couple of years. Instead of cloud, it'll be Star Wars systems or something. That's some ridiculous thing. And we'll get to some of the reasons why we build it that way, why I like them that way. I'm also on, thanks to Will, on the Computer Science Advisory Board, which has been an enjoyable experience for about a year. It's been really fun working with you guys. I'm also on LinkedIn, Jason Prater 13. Please look me up. I always love connecting with everybody. So, what does it mean to be a programmer in a commercial environment? And to me, it's kind of how do you other people view our environment. So I kind of thought this would be an interesting thing that you see on Facebook. So our friends see us, right, as computer repair technicians on call 24/7, right? Like, I can't connect to Facebook with my iPad today. My iPod doesn't work. I can't play my video games. That's what they call us. Our family sees it kind of as a justification for us to game all day, right? That's why we got computer science, so I can be a gamer. Oh, it's homework to play my Xbox tonight. Leave me alone. Our professors and bosses kind of see us as idiot savants who just drew like a, how do we create this, I don't know, it works, right? Our friends who are in different majors, I'll pick on art history majors, I'm sorry, see us, they're baristas at Starbucks, right? They see us as huge money opportunity career. We see ourselves, though, as artisans, right? As creators of beautiful solutions that can solve anything. Or code ninjas that can stop bullets with our minds. In reality, though, what we typically do is TPS cover sheets, which I know for those who haven't seen Office Space, it's a huge thing. But in essence, most of our lives is not programming, right, in a commercial environment. It's everything else. And we'll get into some of those right now. And so in the real, I call it the real world, but really in the commercial world, there's a lot of challenges to programming that's never the cool, fun challenges of like, I can't get this to work, right? It's things like technological shifts, right? So, in the last couple of years, smartphones, right? 4 years ago, a couple of people had Blackberries. Everyone thought they were cute. Now, smartphones outsell PCs and everything else, and regular phones. These shifts are accelerating. Tablet computing, right? The fact that the world was Windows, 95% Windows, 5% Apple. It's been that way for 20 years. Now it's Android, and God knows who else is going to create more operating systems. That shifts, and those shifts are accelerating. In a commercial environment, that happens very, very important because you're trying to figure out who you're trying to sell to. You have vague and changing requirements. It used to be that you'd get this beautiful design document that was 80 pages long of what you had to build and when it was said to be due by. It was contractually locked in stone, and everyone was happy, right? And you went into your little closet and programmed for 3 years and returned and said, it is done, right? Not anymore. Now you get this vague, I have this problem, make it go away, right? And then you program away. Is this what you're looking for? No, not really. Start over, right? Okay, throw that out. Start over. What about this? No, I can't do this anymore either. It's a very vague and very changing requirement. That's what the world expects now. We now have, as the world has gotten more, what I'll call technology aware, they've gotten more technology unaware. Right? It used to be, everyone was very familiar that technological limitations of something could do, right? That things were complex, difficult to build. Now, the consumerization of IT, as they call it, the fact that everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a PC, everyone has a iPad. They really don't tolerate hearing about technical limitations. That's just unacceptable in their opinion. They want you to make it go away. That's what they're paying you to do. They don't want to hear about it, which makes things difficult. You need to build solutions that scale quickly and cheaply. This is always, I always use the example of, it's really the .com bubble that used to happen a lot. And that's where you build a website that did some wonderful thing. Maybe it was a repository of great Italian artwork, right? Suddenly you get memed or you get crunched. All of a sudden everybody hits it, site goes down. Frankie, right? That's not acceptable anymore. You've got to build everything with a mind that at the drop of a hat you go from 5 users to 5 million. And just be prepared for it. And that's very, 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 very difficult to do. Handling daylight savings time across the globe. I always throw this in there because Flex is one of the hardest things in the world to do, is handling time zones, right? Because they change all the time. People pass new laws. Oh, the U.S. now has daylight savings time in March and November. It sounds trivial, like, oh, add an hour, subtract an hour. It's not. It is very, very hard. But it's an example of this globalization that we go through and how we have to experience and how we have to program around it. And please never have to work on this. This is one of my favorites lately. Your intellectual property, aka your great idea that will change the world, is safe as long as you don't tell anyone anything. Which is a horrible way to spread your wonderful idea. You'll see today that I actually got a letter today from an intellectual property lawyer helping me do patent lawsuits if there's anything I want to sue somebody for. Intellectual property and the idea, especially within computing, is dead. The rest of the world hasn't caught up to that yet. But essentially it's turned into a legal instrument to sue one another, to just generate revenue and come into cross-licensing agreements. That kind of sucks. When you have a fantastic idea, others coalesce around it, you build it, it starts to grow, and then Yahoo shows up with a patent lawyer and says, thank you. Here are our 16 patents you have violated, including clicking on a button to solve a patent. Goodbye. We'll just acquire your product now for nothing. Very scary, very horrible, very difficult to deal with. Lawyers love to show up now with their endless questions about end-user license agreements and master service agreements and patents and contracts and blah, 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 blah. It actually got so bad, I actually applied to law school because I was so sick of dealing with legal. If it wasn't for the astronomical cost of law school, which I think just perpetuates the justification for asking me lots of questions and charging me a lot of money, I would have went to law school. It is ridiculous. Has anybody actually read an end-user license agreement for anything? Oh, like a torturer. What was it for?
It's evaluating different software products, and I had to make sure the legal stuff was.
Anyone read iTunes EULA, where it talks about it's illegal to use this product in the support of chemical, nuclear, or biological weapons? That is literally in your iTunes EULA, right? I have no idea what poor soul found that for us to share, right? I just did Control F to see what's true. It is an amazing amount of litany you have to deal with. And then when they're done, the accountants show up, right? The accountants love to talk about revenue recognition rules and how they apply for recurring revenue versus standalone value and blah, blah, blah. And then you have differences between US GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting practices, and international financial reporting standards, and how they're different, and how your tiny little tweak to a little income report suddenly has caused a GAAP violation, and the IRS would like to talk to you, right? Which has happened. And then, of course, endless PowerPoint presentations like this. Right? Maybe working at Starbucks isn't that bad, you know? Maybe it's a much better career choice, much easier on the soul. But it's not as rewarding. And really, how do you make it all work? Is how do you make someone happy, right? Because at the end of the day, when you're in the industrial commercial environment, you're just trying to make someone's life better, right? Better by helping them navigate either GPS to some new location, helping them do their taxes, which is what I'm doing right now with TurboTax. Thank you, TurboTax. At the end of the day, that's what you do. That's what it really makes the experience rewarding, at least to me, is the fact that I made someone's day a little bit better in some fashion. Okay. And unfortunately, that's not easy. The key thing is you need to focus on what the user needs, not on the technology to get there. That's a huge, huge difference from an environment where you're typically are very technology focused, right? Right now you're learning languages and techniques and methods to build things. At the end of the day, a user doesn't care, right? They don't care that you used a C# with an ASP.NET solution instead of a PHP solution. They really, really, really don't care. They care if they click the little button, it tells them where to go, right? And it's very easy to get lost in that technical minutia, right? Because it's very difficult and critical decisions on how you get to that solution, but no one cares. That's up for us. We care, right? I love hearing about JavaScript optimization techniques, and that's exciting to me, right? No one else outside of this group of people cares, right? And it's hard to realize that, and that's why it's rewarding to meet with other people to share those wonderful ideas with. But it's definitely what it's about. Ignore the rules, right? We have a motto. Rules meant to be broken or rewritten, right? Don't break the law, right? You're all far too pretty for prison, right? That's not a wonderful environment to work in. Don't go there. And what that really means is that you'll hear about, like, well, this is the way we build things, or this is the way we do things, blah, 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 blah. Right? Ignore it. Just do what you need to do to make the user happy, and then the good things will happen. This is the classic. Execute faster, better, cheaper than everyone else. Right? So this line is probably in every marketing or business class that you've ever somehow not taken. And it basically boils down to this wonderful triangle: be better, faster, or cheaper than somebody else. You don't have to be all three, but 2 of the 3 is what you want to do. Right? Bugatti makes beautiful cars. They are much faster, much better than anything else you could buy, but they are definitely not cheaper than anything else. Right? That's okay. That's Bugatti's life. That's what they want to do. Others make, like Chery, it's a Chinese manufacturer, beautifully cheap cars. They're not very fast. They're not very reliable, but they serve a certain market need. You need to figure out what you need to do, because that's a huge critical decision. People often get lost trying to do all 3, and they end up doing none. Right? And if you're doing none, you're nothing. You're mediocre. Nothing wants it. No, you're not making anyone happy, and that's really difficult. First almost never means best, right? And there are so, especially in technology, the world is littered with the first company to do something, and they're not around anymore. Anyone know the first, what you'd call classic search engine? Anyone know who they were? 1993, it was called a company called Webcrawler. Yeah, they died in 1996. Right? First ones to come up with an idea and an engine to crawl through the web, catalog all the words on a page, and make a nice web UI for you to search for it, just like Google today. No one knows it. First MP3 player. Anyone know? Yeah, exactly. I don't know either. It's not the iPod. Right? What did the iPod do? It executed a better solution. In fact, it helped you buy music, catalog the music, and use that music. First doesn't give you anything. Right? So that's why it goes back to the whole IP rule. You have some fantastic idea, if it's not the first idea, you might be a little scared. Yeah. Impatience is a sin, not a virtue. Right? And this gets into the whole why I became a programmer. Right? So I was the son of a tool and die maker. For those who don't know, that's an automotive. It's a guy who makes the tooling that runs the machines. And he grew me up, so I was running machines when I was 12, running a lathe and a mill. And it was really fun, and so I think my dad was really trying to groom me to be an engineer, right? But then I realized that when you drew the little part, right, the time it took for them to make the part was too long for me. I had no patience for that. That's actually why I became a programmer, was I loved the instant feedback, the instant ability to change anything I wanted whenever I felt like it. There was no waiting for physical reality to catch up, right? I'd complain that my compiler took 30 seconds, right? That's the patience that we just don't exist in our environment. And that's important for us, right? Is that, and I'll show why, is that you need to iterate, you need to create, you need to destroy at the drop of a hat, right? Why wait? What's the value in waiting? So someone else can beat you to it? Forget that. Wait. All right. But most importantly, iterate. All right. Does anyone know what I mean by iterate? Anyone here of I'm going to say a line, anyone know what companies come, and this is their motto: done is better than perfect. Minor company, most, called Facebook. Right? That's the philosophy that you could spend all day making it perfect. But guess what? That's not making somebody happy. Right? because perfection is a ever-evolving, ever-changing goal. And it'll take you forever to get there. 80% is better than perfect. Because 80% the user's like, there, it's happy, I can feel it, I can use it. It doesn't do everything I want, but it does most of what I want, right? You can get feedback, because that last 20% may not be what they originally thought, maybe something else, right? The key is to iterate quickly through those solutions. Don't sit there and build something for 6 years. By the time you're done, the market has moved on. Is anyone know the most popular browser before Internet Explorer? You guys are not history people. Netscape Navigator. You know what happened to Netscape? They decided to start over for version 4 and rewrite everything. It took them 4 years. By the time they were done, IE, in its horrible browser that it is, I can only tell you how bad it is, had iterated through twice beyond them. That's Microsoft, right? They're not exactly known as the leopards of pouncing. Got left behind. Netscape Navigator couldn't do it, IE could. No one cared. And it's because they did not iterate. They sat there and tried to make it perfect, and it'll be the best JavaScript optimization engine, and have this wonderful techniques. Sucked, no one used it. Gone, dead. That's what it's about. You have to iterate quickly, learn quickly. Now for me, this kind of feeds the story of why Plex. So why we became a cloud solution. So back in 1995, Plex was created. And we did at the time custom solutions for customers for ERP businesses, which is essentially this fancy way of saying a company would want something to run all their business applications. We wrote all their business applications from scratch. And we had this idea that predated our existence of quickly deploying those features as you get them, because then you get feedback and then you can tweak your revision. Don't make an 80-page design document that doesn't do what someone wants. And so we would go through these complex deployment processes, right? You gotta remember, this is the 90s, okay? So this is actually dial-up modems, which you guys only hear about in old movies. And complex Unix operating systems that were different based on customer installs. It was incredibly hard to deploy something, right? And then you get feedback, and you're like, oh, that's not what you want, let me change it. Well, I don't have the customer's data, blah, blah, blah. It's very, very hard to iterate through enhancements to make the user better and happier. And so we sat down in 2001, or it's actually 2000 we started this. I'm like, well, what's our strength? Quickly building stuff. What's our weakness? Deploying sucks. Right? Deploying across the country just is not scaling. All right, let's make a solution where all of the source code is in our four walls, on our gear. And then we'll just deliver the web, the interface to the web UI. Right? Everyone's like, that sounds like a cool idea. Because we spent a year and we came up with a solution. I can remember this is the time that the first .com bubble crashed. This is the time when you tell somebody, like I told my mom, I bought a book from Amazon, and she'd look at me like, why'd you get a book from the jungle? This whole internet world, Google didn't really do anything yet. But our goal was not to be the first cloud ERP system. Our goal was to deliver and iterate faster. Instantaneous feedback. Instantaneous deployments, because it's going from one server to the other server, right? All in the same closet, which one was at that time. Iterate. Build up, go faster. Go fast. Right? And that's how you can learn faster, you can fail faster, you can succeed faster. That's kind of the key process to grow. Right? Everyone else is starting to catch on. Right? So Microsoft has Windows 8 come out. Anyone have played developed a preview yet? 7 is what, a year and a half old? It used to be 4 to 5 years between versions. Now they're getting down to a year and a half. I bet they'll get down to a year before, probably before 2015. Why is that? Because the world's changing fast. They're just trying to keep up, trying to make things better, right? How many times does Google deploy? Does anyone know their deploy frequency? 3 weeks. For them, that's called astronomically fast. For me, that's called incredibly slow. We deploy 150 times a day, right? I want to deploy 500 times a day. Because that's when you're providing value, delivering a feature to a user to make their life better. That's why Google does it. Facebook's the only company I know that deploys on this kind of schedule.
So how do you keep track? Do you keep track?
No, it's total chaos. And I like it that way. So it's a, how do I say this? When you, in an industrial environment, you usually have to deal with things like marketing. And marketing can be slower to adopt to change than you or I, right? We pick career paths. That's changed. That's just what we did. No one programs in languages I learned in college, thank God. Right? And they'll not program what you're learning 5 years from now. Don't worry about it, right? We'll just evolve, we'll change with that, we'll build new, learn new things and try new things. Other areas of the world aren't as adaptive. So marketing used to yell at me, and still does. Prater, what'd you deploy today? I don't know. Let's go check the deploy log. Well, how are we supposed to do a release? You know, have a release marketing event and tell everybody about these new features. And like, 6 months from now, I'm like, that seems like a waste of time. Why not just tell people as we deploy them what we deploy? Instantaneously. But how can I market that? I don't know, get out of my way. And so what we did is just create a deploy log to tell everybody, this is what we changed every single day. And for our customers, it's fantastic. I got an email today about it. Customer called, their customer, which happened to be GM, had a change to the way they had to do their paperwork. And they were like, we can't ship our product to make money without this change. What can you do? Developer got on the phone, 30 seconds later hit the deploy button with the change, customer shipped the product. Iterated through on the phone. That's what it's all about, right? We made somebody happy. He sent me a wonderful email after that. That's all I heard about it. And that's what we do, right? Iterate through to make happiness. That's what you have to think of. Whether it be you're making Garmin software for GPSs, or you're making software for us business applications, or games, right? How many people play MMOs? Warcraft, World of Warcraft? Nobody? Man. Right? That's the key to their happiness comes from someone paying every month. And they need to deliver something to keep that content fresh, to keep that user there, make them happy. That's what they do. They iterate quickly. Right? And for us, this is what the world is for us. Right? This is like, to me, the one word I want you to learn from today. Iterate. Iterate quickly, deliver. Because this is where the magic happens. Right? Again, no one cares about some crazy algorithm. We care, because that's how we make it work. Right? They just want to press the button and go. And that's how we do it. All right. When you get to these projects, right, that 80-page design document, an 80-page, you know, this is what we need to do, and this is how it's going to solve our business issues, or this is how it's going to make my life better as a user, or make me chop broccoli. Huge projects, right? You can't iterate through a huge project every day quickly. And so we call it the elephant, right? How do you eat elephant? Everyone know how to eat elephant? One bite at a time. Take a chunk. He looks delicious. He's fake. Please don't realize I love elephants, so I never eat elephant. It's a great break. And for us, that's where the key to iteration is. You can't deliver everything at once, all at once. You have to grow through and grow that solution up, right? I'm sure, there's a lot of PhD students in here right now, right? Yeah. You're not going to just say, one day it's done. I've called it done. You're going to iterate through that process. It's not going to be able to do everything. The first time you get it done was probably 5%. That's cool. Slowly build up on it. We always like this analogy. So, you guys familiar with the X Prize concept? Right, so X Prize is a bunch of billionaires get together and they come up with what they call an X Prize, and that's where they set a certain amount of award, let's say $25 million, for the first person to create a vehicle that goes into space, lands, and returns in a week. Right? And so teams compete, and they win the X Prize if they can do it. In fact, it was Richard Branson. What was it?
Richard.
Yes. Who won that many, many years ago when aviation was first taking off. There was essentially an X Prize for the first plane, human-powered plane, across the ocean, or across the English Channel and hit France. In essence, everyone tried, and it was these huge engineering projects, and they would fail, and they'd come back and try again a year and a half later. Right? The person who won was a bicycle manufacturer. I don't know why bicycles and planes always seem to link together. They do. And what he had learned was to make a modular plane. And then when he failed, he would learn, well, my wings weren't strong enough to support the wind across the channel. Let me take the wings off, stiffen up the wings, and try again. He iterated through a very complex project, one bite at a time, very quickly. He did, I think it was an average of 20 flights a year, where the average other team did a flight every year. He failed faster, he succeeded faster, he iterated. Guess who won the prize? Which at the time I think was at $5 grand. But that's the key, right? That's why I always say, take a flight. Questions so far? You guys are all kind of dust now. it's Friday. Everyone's different, right? And so what I want to kind of explain is that the industry has different things for different people. Right? There's different organizations, different structures, different opportunities for us to exist. Now what's nice is we are in the midst of what I would call a second .com bubble. Right? Now some would be like, oh, it's going to burst. Yeah, it's going to burst. But in the meantime, it's an amazing opportunity for us all to kind of explore those opportunities and see what we can all achieve. Right? And for me, I always kind of do things by company size. Now this could be by the fact that I like certain things about certain, and it's typically related to the size of the companies, but it doesn't matter. And so when you go out there, there's a lot of cool things. So the best part is startups. So any one of you can start a company up right now, this instant. You know why? All you need is something you have in your closet or in your office or whatever, computer. We don't need complex machinery. We don't need liability laws for the most part. We don't need plastic injection molding machines. We just need an idea. How many of you guys have built something like an iPhone app? I know my guys. Did you actually sell it on the market?
No. It's
Just for fun?
Well, as a something like, I actually started an LLC around the website.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. It's still in the process of getting off.
That's cool. What'd you do? I saw someone else raise his hand.
Just a personal thing.
A personal thing? Did you sell are you putting yours on the market yet, Mike?
Maybe, I'm sure.
Get right through, get it on the market. So, if you go to an engineering class and ask how many people have started their own company or created a product, you'll probably get maybe 1 out of 50 or 100. For us, it's computer science. There's a lot. And the reason is, we can take an idea and make it reality the same day. No one else can do that, right? No one can create a website or an iPhone app for parking like we can. And so, all you need is an idea and a way to pay rent. But that's minor compared to everyone else. Most likely it'll fail. Don't worry about it. It's okay. Right? I can't count how many times I was on projects in processes that failed. Let's see if it sure works. Invest $2 million. Oops. Doesn't work. Right? For me, it was worth as an educational experiment. It was worth that money. We didn't risk enough. We didn't risk a lot, but we learned a lot, so that's okay. As a startup, you have nothing to lose but your own time, which can be enough. Usually you have lots of time. But it will fail. The other complex thing is everyone does everything. So it's all that struggles you have to go through. You're going to have to go through. You're going to have to be legal. You have to be accounting. You have to deal with contract negotiation and sales and marketing. Where one word suddenly makes a product great for it didn't before, as I was telling you. You get small companies, right? This is where I started, right? When I was joined Plex at the time, it was 20 people. We were in a room smaller than this. It was cool because the idea was that the founder had was already starting to work. This is the idea of custom solutions to solve business needs. It was small. There was only 20 people. You knew everybody. But you had a lot of different hats. You know all those positions I showed earlier? That was all them, right? Because I had to do it all. One day I was doing hardware sales. Next day I'm going and selling the software. Next day I'm programming. A lot of different roles, a lot of different exposure, a lot of risk to fail. Right? The scariest part about that for us, when I went through it, was if I was on the second largest account, and I was in charge of it being 22, simply because I had a heartbeat. Right? I like to say it was because I had this wonderful experience set to pull on, and I exposure. No, it's all lies. I'm just lying to myself. I had a pulse. And therefore, I was in charge of a multi-million-dollar project. And I was told when I got assigned that project at my 90-day review, if I screwed up, the company went out of business. Good luck. Terrifying, right? And I made a lot of mistakes that by some miracle did not screw that project up. Great learning experience, but I had to try out a lot of different roles. Very scary. And a big thing about a small company is you have to react to what's happening around you, right? That's when we went through our metamorphosis, that this whole building custom solutions is not really scaling. We got to react and come up with something different. Very scary, very different, very hard. But kind of exciting. Media advice company, right? This is where I'm at right now. The idea has become solidified. This is Your idea, which started off as a faint memory, a faint glance at the sun, now is starting to actually work. You're actually growing as an organization. You have 25 to 500 people. You don't know anyone. You don't know everyone anymore. Process of maturing, but you can still react and change them. The company doesn't create what I call organizational inertia, where it just does what it does because that's what it does. Right? And roles start isolating different elements, so you don't get exposed to it all. So the great part about this is, as a programmer, this is when you can actually start programming for a living and not having to worry about legal. Right? When you don't have to worry about, they send your boss, like me, to go talk to the accountants about SEC revenue recognition rules. What you do, you just get to sit there and crank. Right? That's kind of cool. And a huge step to go through. The biggest thing with medium-sized companies, at least for our experiences, they struggle with is how to become a large company, right? This is desire to grow to succeed, right? I could debate about that all day long, but I don't want to. This is where the idea has become institutionalized. Right? The idea is greater than any one person and greater than anything. It is just, the idea is law. That's how we like to describe it. You're able to tell the market what to buy. And they will typically, most of the time, listen to you. When they don't, you're screwed. But it's an incredibly powerful experience to go through. I know about this more from a competitive standpoint. So we do ERP systems. A big competitor of ours is SAP, which is one of the largest software companies in the world. We started to go into Europe because we're like, oh, let's see what Europe's like. And then we find out SAP sets all the regulatory environment for Europe as to what laws they can do. What laws apply to software systems. SAP tells them, on this day I'm going to release this new version, please change the laws to support that. Okay. And then we show up and we're like, what? Like, oh yeah, SAP just does that. And we're like, well, how do they do that? Well, they control everybody because they just have because they're very large. They're setting the market. Right? That's really cool. It's scary, but cool. The problem is you get caught flat-footed, right? IBM went through this in the 80s when they said, yeah, we won't really care about patents on our hardware. Everyone can configure it. Guess what? Everyone else can make PCs now, drive you out of business. You no longer sell PCs, you outsource it to some other company. So it's very cool. The cool thing is large companies have lots of resources. So there's cool things like research opportunities, right? At a mid-sized company, we just don't have the resources to do that kind of thing. A large company, you do, because now you're setting the market. You're going to research as to what you want the market to buy. Individual impact is negligible. But the flip side of that is there's an incredible amount of abilities to do things that you normally just can't do. Right? I'll use the example of I was talking to Professor Ludo about some interesting topics he's working on in JavaScript optimization. I'm like, that sounds really cool. I could never do something like that, right? But as an organization that's larger and multinational, you can kind of do more of it. Right? That's not my shtick, but it's another. It's kind of cool. Right? So I just want to kind of give everyone has different needs. Not everyone's the same, right? I love the days of the startup and the small company. Now that I have family, there is no way in hell I'm going back to the startup. Right? I got kids. I got to put food on the table. I can't eat ramen for a week like I used to be able to. That's very, very scary. Different people have different needs, right? Other people just enjoy that excitement. They call them serial entrepreneurs, right? Go from startup to startup to startup to startup. One takes off, they sell it, move on to the next startup. They love the chaos. They love the excitement. Everything's for everybody. It's different things. Other people enjoy the incredible resources you can bring to bear, right? Some of the larger companies, the amount of people they can put on a problem is just astronomical. That's really freaking cool, right? Different things. Some resources. So I kind of went on a lot of rants, a lot of rambles. I got some great resources down here. If you come to me on LinkedIn, I have them all listed there. I strongly recommend anyone who has anything to do with software engineering, they read the manifesto for Agile Software Development. Again, it came out after we did it, but it still kind of fulfills it. Joel Spolsky's a great, runs his own small company. It's actually a medium-sized company now. It's a fantastic blog about Joel on software. It really kind of, to me, sets the vibe for what it means to be an engineer. Guy Kawasaki is one of the originals at Apple. He's not as well known as Steve was, but he's very observant, very communication. I highly recommend his blogs. He actually works with a lot of different software companies now. TechCrunch is just a great site to see what's going on in the world. Same with Kickstarter. Anyone do Kickstarter yet? Anyone know what Kickstarter is? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those who don't know, Kickstarter is a website where you put out this idea and you say, this is how much money it's going to take to fulfill this idea. So someone did it for laser cut out catapults, right? People pledge if they like that idea, and once you hit your threshold, you get the money, you get to build that idea, and you do it. So I've pledged a couple software projects that I've seen people do that they've had some great exciting interest in, just because for me they were interesting. There was one about a Bluetooth-enabled voltmeter, which would be really cool for me. Pledge that. So it's always a great object. It's great for you to see other projects out there. It's also great for you to, if you actually do need money, you just can't live off ramen noodle. It's kind of a great way to start out. Sonic Boom's a book by Greg Easterbrook. Greg Easterbrook is an economist, I guess you'd call him. And Sonic Boom kind of talks about the iteration philosophy and how it's applying to the rest of the world. Essentially what's happening is, in his opinion, the world's starting to become more like software development, right? Where people expect things now. Right? There's no, what do you mean 3 years from now? I don't want to wait 3 years, I want to wait now. Right? And then they want those revolutions to happen faster and faster. And Greg kind of talks in great depth about that, how that causes a lot of interesting things and impacts on our society. Free Software Foundation, great friends of mine who hate patents. That's why I like them. And then Flex, that's me. Yeah, so it's a great way to hear from us. And then questions. How did I take? Questions, thoughts, comments.
Do you find it hard for your customers to adapt to your time frame?
Yes.
Can you explain what happens and give me a picture of what?
So,
Like if you have a manufacturing customer, they're doing all this enterprise resource work and they're used to a methodical.
yeah,
do
never
this-
static systems. And so there's a couple different ways. One, it has actually killed us out of certain verticals. So medical device, or heavily regulated medical device industries, every time you have a software change, you have to revalidate all your quality control processes. Since we deploy 150 times a day, then it doesn't work, right? So it's kind of, we've actually been talking to the FDA to change their laws because we don't think it applies anymore. For customers, it's an expectation. You know, it's the fact that you can get value out of other enhancements. So unlike in static software, so in a classic, what we call classic environment, where you deploy, someone has software, they give them a disk, they install it, they use it, they run it, and then you release patches, but it's up to them to install it. That customer will typically do customizations, changes, tweaks, right, that only apply to them. In our business model, because all the source, there's literally one copy of the source code, any change you make, everyone can get, right? And so that becomes very scary but very powerful because it allows you to leverage a change across a much broader group. And so for our customers, that's the way we kind of set that expectation and set that line. It does cause issues from time to time, but it's kind of something we work to mitigate through control.
Do you ever have feature creep?
Yeah, and I think that that's a part of making somebody happy.
But
It's all about how you set that expectation, how you control, how you kind of guide them through that process. Because it's just a matter of course, right? Because people's lives and their environments are constantly changing. They need to help. And so what we would call feature creep, right, as engineers, we're like, the list was this. What do you mean it's getting longer, right? I would call increasing the value that you provide, right? It is important to capture that value, i.e. charge for it, to make sure they realize it. So in our case, when we work with a customer, they actually pay us for all our enhancements. And it's more of that helps them control their own scope, right? Because if they just let it go crazy, they're going to be paying through the nose for it, right? We're not very cheap. I also do what's called there's no customers in here, right? Yeah. I also do punitive quoting. Bad idea. Customers getting really on my nerves because they keep asking for things that don't really seem to apply. They don't seem to be open to ideas. Raise their estimates to the roof. And then they're like, I'm going to ask you for something. Don't ever say that to me.
Do you use one source code that applies to all the customers, or is it tailored, customized per customer?
So all the source code is for one. There's one set of source code. There's actually a development, a test, and a production one, but on prod there's one. What happens is when we deploy a feature set, we control it through what's called configuration or data changing. So there's either data values that drive that feature set or settings that enable that feature set. We just control how those users can turn those on and off. We empower them to do so, but that's how we do it. So, and it's also kind of cool. Like, I'm a data guy, right? So all the data is essentially spread across our node system, but it's 20 tera data, 5,000 tables, highly normalized, 3 to 5th form, depending on what you like, depending on the area, billions of rows and tables, and then you can't do maintenance on it. because you can't bring the thing down. It's cool. That's what I like about it. Go ahead.
So say something about big data.
Say something about big data, how fun it is. So, I'm a database guy. I don't know why. I just love databases, right? And so, for us, our big thing is data is what kind of drives the scenario. So we made a design decision many years ago that you have a classic, you guys heard the classic feature architecture, right? You have a UI layer, business logic layer, data layer. Yeah, that doesn't work in a multi-tenant environment. Doesn't scale, too slow. Maybe if you have billions of dollars to buy hardware with, but we don't. So we combined the data business logic layer together. But at the same token, we're very normalized data structures. We're at 5,000 tables. Our competitors that we've been able to discuss and look at the code for, they're at 2,000 tables, right? And that's because normalization is speed, right? And so we've gotten very good at dealing with multi-billion rows. Now what's interesting for us about big data is maintenance. When you do it, you guys know what index fragmentation is? Right? And so that's where your indexes gets fragmented because you have insert updates against the data inside that index. You can't reorg an index on production in the middle of the day because then it doesn't work. And so you have to come very creative in how you handle and massage and maintain big data. Now, the other part of that is how you query big data, right? And so then you get into analysis of insert update time, because every index you add update slows it down. So to be very picky about how you do it. Now, other people in the market are starting to go to more non-relational data forms, right? Hadoop implementations, right? Name value pair. We're exploring that for some of our sets, but we still like the strength of our normalization because we make it fast.
So why do you have, what kind of data are you using? Isn't the data with the customer or is?
It's all the customer's data.
And it's on the cloud?
Yeah, it's all on our, well, okay, so for us, the cloud is our data center that we staff.
Okay, that's fine.
And so I can, through different methods, get all of our customer data sits in our little environment over there in Auburn Hills. In fact, if you guys want to see where I got my card with that. I can't get into it, but, and so that's how we host it all. Now, it's interesting.
How is it backed up?
We stream, there's a couple ways. So we use a storage area network. That takes snapshots instantaneously every second on a change log. We then stream that change log down to our backup data center down in Asheville, which is basically a replication of everything we have up here. Asheville's at most, I think it's 35 minutes cold compared to us. So it takes up to 35 minutes to get everything down in the middle of the day. It's amazing how pipe we got to send down there too. It's actually interesting. To set up the backup data center, what we did is set up the SAN up here, the backup SAN up here, mimic it on a Friday night, loaded it into a truck, and then drove all the way down to Asheville and plugged it back in. Because if it gets more than a week out of sync, it can't catch up because the data throughput's too much. So that's one thing. Go ahead.
What are the main frameworks that you guys use at your company?
What do you mean by frameworks?
Like Rails or something?
So from back end, we use Microsoft SQL Server, right? So part of that was back in 2001 we decided this. There was only two real size database back then, SQL Server and Oracle. We couldn't afford Oracle. I think it was a wise decision now, just because as we scale up, the licensing costs would kill us. From a front end, we use a combination of Classic ASP and C#. The reason we use Classic is because it can be deployed. It's just, for those who don't know, it's like PHP. It's an interpreted language. It's just a file copy. So deploying it all day long, no impact. Whereas with build times based across the code base, we've had some of our, it takes 9 minutes to execute a build for one of our builds. That's 9 minutes on a deploy, that's 9 minutes on a rollback. You're down 20 minutes. So we're very careful about where we decide to do a compiled language deploy. But we do it a lot for our infrastructure stuff we don't deploy. We deploy it like once a week or once a month instead of other stuff. It's much more business app front end, just jam through it in class. Other questions? This is good stuff. This is why I love talking to technology people. Like, I used to sales staff were like, can I get it blue? Yes, you can get it in blue. I'm glad my 10 life years I've put into this thing have made it so you can ask me that question. Go ahead.
You mentioned, I guess I'm just still struggling with 100 deployments a
150.
day. 150. So you must have design meetings like on the hour. I mean, what is your day like?
My day? I only work on the more complicated ones. So how we have it structured is from an organization perspective, let me blow your minds in a different way. All that 150 deployments, 99.99% of those, that code that went out the door was reviewed by the developer who wrote it, and tested by the developer who wrote it, and that was it. We don't have a QA department. I will never have one as long as there's breath in my lungs. We don't have a QA, our QA cycle is very, what I will call nebulous, and very contextual to what the change is. And so, typically what happens is a customer will ask for a feature set or an enhancement. Their project manager will help refine that with them to kind of make sure to gather all the requirements, because sometimes the customers don't know what they want. And then they hand it to the engineer, and the engineer just communicates directly with the user and iterates through with our test environment to get what they want to deploy through. So, you know, just like you take that elephant, you just take the little bites out and kind of guide them down the path. And so when it gets to a complex process, we have we call them team leads, basically senior developers who can kind of have more knowledge of the process. It's just because they know how the 5,000 tables work. That's the key. If you know how the data structure works, you can make everything else work. The UI is a piece of cake. And so that's what they can bring. That's how we do it. But yeah, 99% of those deployments, one guy saw the code, was the guy who wrote the code. No one, there's no code review process, just a deployment.
Does that ever cause any problems?
Once in a while.
Yeah, there's a bug,
Like,
and fix it later.
And so to me, it's, you have to kind of, what's our failure rate? I think our rollback rate's like less than 1%, which to us is acceptable loss versus what it would take to put in QA processes. Now, part of the thing we're doing is we're starting to implement unit testing for our compiled code. Because of framework level changes and we don't deploy them very often, the fact that you have an automated unit test fire off on them is okay. And because their test process was getting too complicated, it was taking too much time. And so we just automated it. We are still investigating other automated testing solutions to kind of work on more UI testing, more to get back in the medical device industry. That kind of pisses us off. We don't like to lose.
Do you ever have to do refactoring?
Yeah, all the time.
Just don't care.
Just gotta make it happen. Just gotta figure out a way to refactor in small chunks. And so that's where the trick gets in.
5,000 tables. I mean, it seems like you might have a patchwork as opposed to a totally out of the nose.
I don't think, I would disagree.
I don't know. I
And that's and that gets into the whole, you can blow up anything that you want anytime, right? Because there's, and so like I've re-engineered, God, how many modules have I re-engineered? Probably 6 or 7, like the core module before I got promoted when I wasn't allowed to develop anymore. I probably rebuilt that thing from the ground up 4 or 5 times. Just blow it all up, change it over.
So the 5,000 tables are, the structure is very flat in the sense that some customers use only some of the tables?
Most of the customers use all the tables.
Wow.
And so it's multi-tenancy. You guys familiar with multi-tenancy? Do you guys have like a SaaS design session? Like, I could probably have a class on just SaaS design, on how to do multi-tenancy alone. So there's multiple ways to achieve multi-tenancy. They've really boiled down to 2 ways.
Multi-what?
Multi-tenancy. It's where you have
What does
all,
it mean?
that means where you have data for multiple customers in the same environment,
Okay.
right? That's how you do every cloud and SaaS deployment. And there's basically 2 ways to do it. One way is the hardware way, where each customer is basically on a virtual machine that's totally isolated from everybody else. That's kind of the initial way that people have done it. Some people still do it. Downside to that is when you start adding customers at a rapid pace, you start outstripping the ability to virtualize it out fast. Our way is we add 1 column to every single table called, in our case, Plex customer members. Right? And we enforce all of our joins because it's part of the primary key. I love database theory, so it's part of the primary key and you make all your joins in it. So in essence, all of our customers' data is mashed together. Right? 1 column delineates it all. And what's nice about that method is your data is a little bit bigger, but you have a much easier data center footprint to manage when it comes to deployments. Right? Whereas if you go to the isolated route, it's hard to test, it's hard to deploy, it's hard to verify if you have deploy errors, which are nightmares. Because we tried that out too.
Is there any research challenges in your company that you could use open university resources?
Well, that's what I was talking to several professors today about. There's some discussions. We're just limited in our resource perspective from because we're all mid-size. I have to be very careful with what I spend money on. Right? But I did start a scholarship that starts in the fall.
Yeah, say a few words about that.
So Working with the computer science department here has been very exciting for us. We actually have we have 90 developers, they're all in Auburn Hills for the most part. There's one person who's not, she's included for me. Most of our the majorities came from Oakland University. And so, in order to build a better relationship and kind of get you guys sooner, we work with the computer science department in Raleigh, and so we started a scholarship that starts in the fall. We also have internship opportunities that started this summer as well. And then you guys applied for it, it was on the website. So we kind of look that way. We do have a research team. In fact, one of there is a PhD candidate with University of Michigan Flint, working on some of our issues as we continue to scale up.
So in a startup, or being a startup, how many hours a week do you work?
So you have no money, you have lots of time. And so you work an incredible amount of hours. Even in a small company, when you wear multiple hats, it can be very stressful.
Even now?
Pardon?
Even now?
Now, as mid-size, I work a lot still because I enjoy too many things that are in company. Like, I love doing this stuff. I love working on speeches with Sammy. Like, this was really fun for me to put together. It's stressful but fun. I still have my other stuff I gotta take care of. I've got customers I gotta get ready for a user conference. And so you work 40 to 50 now. I used to work 60 to 80. The small days, that kind of sucked. But it was super exciting. Again, the startup is what you want to put into it, what you get out of it. And that's where, like, I actually encourage some of my developers to do that on the side. They've got ideas. They don't compete with us. Go build them. We're trying to do a sabbatical program. That's my next thing I want to do. Because one of our developers made an iPhone game, took off, quit. Now he works for Spooky Labs Games, which is an iPhone and social game developer. Cool. I thought that was really cool. And so that's why I was kind of surprised by only like the little apps, because there's a lot of people that have ideas. My only word of caution is we are the doers of the world and the dreamers. Dreamers will sometimes try to take advantage of the fact that we can do, and so just be cautious before you get taken for a ride. Right, you go through Craigslist and you'll see, like, looking for a PHP developer to build the next Facebook, right? Be careful before you invest all your time in those things. Make sure you're getting compensated for your efforts and energies up front. Because they will use your exciting skill talents that no one else can do, which is what's cool about it. Other questions, other thoughts?
I have just one question. Now, when you put all the information together in one database,
Yeah.
now if I change the client software and I like the select statement or whatever and pick like information from other companies because they are all in one table.
Yeah.
So how you manage that privilege? Like,
So when it comes to users writing their own code, we've obfuscated the PCN layer by using views, such that when a user writes a view, it automatically is restricted to their PCN and tenant, so they don't have to worry about it. From our perspective, we enforce it in a deployment process that reviews all your select statements to make sure, because we don't allow dynamic SQL outside of Sprox because of the fact that it doesn't work really well. Right? You're just setting yourself up for an injection attack. Like, you'll see somebody doing a comment, close, comment, shutdown, or a truncate table, which is way worse than a shutdown. Because a shutdown, you just go hit the button, it comes back up. You start truncating tables, wiping out data, because truncate tables is instantaneous. You can't do dynamic SQL. You got to do all the SQL in Sprox. So we enforce that at a system layer. Use views to let users report their own data out, so they can't cross out of their own tenant. Then we enforce it on our side through our deployment process. And we all wrote.
and do you have problem like customers, they usually don't trust you because they don't have the data, you have all their data.
During the sales cycle, you run into challenges, but then you show off our security process that goes through, and they realize quickly that we're way more secure than anything they can do. We have a bank vault. I have a chief security officer. I'm regularly audited I'm attacked on a regular basis by a company we pay to attack us. No one else has that. And then I have a backup data center on top of it. No local organization. The larger companies you'll run into that they do have some of that, but even then they're starting to realize the cost and inability to leverage that we can, that they're starting to give up on. Back in 2001, we didn't tell anybody that it was out of our data center. They would just go through the contract like, where's the server requirements? Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Like, what do you mean? Just sign the deal. Don't worry. Go ahead.
You mentioned when you started out, or as a startup in general, you played many roles. What were all the roles? You touched on some of them, legal, that you yourself played. What
Oh,
were all the
marketing
roles?
is the word. So, that I did,
Yeah.
a lot of sales. I still do a little bit of sales, but that was something that was I was unprepared for. I'm an engineer. I look at facts. I give honest reply based on factual data. During a sales cycle, that can be called a turnoff. Because you could freak people out. Because you're like, they'll ask for something like, that'd be really hard to do. It'd take me a couple thousand hours to do that. They're like, what? Where I should have said, that's an interesting enhancement idea. I can't wait to explore that further with you. That's the kind of thing you have to learn, right? Is that, in fact, at the shop, they know I go into my bullshit voice. They know it's because I've been in sales. So sales channel was really hard. The legal channel was really hard, the legal and accounting part. In fact, the company was founded by 2 developers and a back-end guy, a data center guy. Employee number 4 was an accountant. We had legal experience because it was just getting too hard. And that was after like 3 months. They had no money. They hired somebody because it was just getting too complex to manage. It's very, very scary. You get into liability issues and stuff like that. It can be scruffy. Now what's nice now is there's a lot more resources to use for that kind of thing. Like the classic iPhone app developer, Apple kind of helps you out with a lot of that because they want your 60 cents on the dollar. So they will be more than happy to help you with their legal needs to support you.
Can I ask how many customers you have? I don't know. If you
680.
Are they ever scared to sign, and don't they worry that if you guys ever went out of business someday, would be in trouble?
So we have what's called, what's the phrase for it? Escrow, source code escrow. So all of our source code once a month gets dumped into an escrow service to hold it. And that kind of appeases them. Now, me as an engineer knows that source code is useless. It's the skill set it takes to actually implement that source code to make it actually work. Like, it gets to the IP thing. I actually give our customers all our source code. They can view all of it, except for security code, they can view everything. Because to me, it's just a window of iteration. Like you can steal all my source code today, I can give you everything. It'll take you years to get the thing up, and I've already iterated through 2 more years down the road. Go ahead. Right? And so that's the 2 ways we do it. We also, our customers have formed a bankruptcy credit alignment. So if I were declared bankruptcy, they already have a line of credit enforceable that we can revert to continue operations. We don't need to, but that's just something that as a community organization they structure around.
So the company that's paid to attack you,
Yeah.
how do you, first of all, how frequently are they successful, and how do you evaluate how well
So
they're doing?
they're called white hat security, and what we do is we pay them on an ongoing basis. And what they do is basically they have automated attack algorithms against us, and then we give them basically a couple of holes to come through, assuming they got through the firewall, and attack the software itself on a limited account. We give them a special tenant to attack, and then they report whenever there's a failure if they can get through. And so what's nice is they always are. They're paid to stay on top of any kind of security threat analysis changes, and then we get reports they found an injection attack that worked or different things, and we kind of react to those. It's actually really great. Again, what's cool is we have to leverage our size, and in fact we have 680 customers to do that kind of thing. Nobody else can do that. It's really exciting for us.
What about social engineering attacks?
We do a lot of use of security that kind of limits that. It's still possible. We do a lot of, but we track every single user, what they do, where they go, what they did, what they click, what was the order, where they log in from. And if we detect what we call odd behavior, we start flagging it. We flag the user and let the customer know. We see a lot of our customers have operations in China because there's customers all across the globe. And so sometimes they'll see it, like you'll see an odd IP address pop up, and it's like, oh, we're just starting an operation in China. I'm in China right now. Kicking off. Oh, okay. Stuff like that. You can do a lot.
So during your early days of the startup, or during your start, did you have any challenge? Well, I'm sure you had challenges, but did you ever reach a point where you thought maybe this isn't going to work out? Maybe I should do something else. And if you did, how'd you get past it?
We kept all the emails. We keep all our emails. And it was what I call classic feast and famine. Right, you got a new customer, got lots of money, because back then a lot of money was because it was license deals, they paid us up front. Like, how can we piss it away fast enough, right? And then 3 weeks later, you get another email, we're screwed, because we have a very open organization. We have all the, everyone can see all the financials. We've done it since day one, and we continue to do so. And so we're like, we're out of money, we gotta start cutting back. How are we gonna generate more revenue the next week, so we can make payroll the week after? And so there are a lot of challenges. For us in particular, during the startup phase was the sales cycle, right? No one's gonna trust their business system to a company that's been around for a couple of years, and it's custom written. Like, there's no support model for it. Very, very hard for us to get sales during that first couple of years. That was by far the hardest thing. The second was, when we built POL, we built our cloud solution, there was no other cloud solution. There was no Amazon EC2, there was no Salesforce, there was nothing to model after. So you just had to build everything, right? We built our own deployment system, we built our own air tracking system, we built our own testing system, we built our own security threat model analysis, because nothing exists. And so the platform evolvement was very complex and very slow. Whereas today, you can get jump-started, right? You can use EC2, you don't have to worry about servers, you don't have to worry about cloud, you just have to worry about how much of the servers you use. Very much easier to manage than go write a $2 million check to NetApp for your first SAN. That's scary, right? Especially when you have like $1.5 million in the bank. So it's just tough. And that's where it's kind of, the environment has changed. It's gotten a lot more new, a lot better for people to do. That's why you see a lot more of it. Incredible environment right now. I just don't want to make sure everyone understands that. And you have a special education that you should take advantage of. Right? There's a lot of opportunities across the whole spectrum, right? I like small companies. I like to make an impact. I like to know when I take a day off that everyone knows about it. That's me. I'm an egomaniac, I guess. But that's not for everybody. That's cool. There's a lot of opportunities for everyone. I want to make sure that everyone knows where we're at. Because it's kind of hard sometimes to know. I only know because I'm trying to hire all of you. So. Other questions? Your great questions. I love talking. Anything else on the architecture level? I love talking about the architecture. I can sit here at the whiteboard all day and talk about different decisions. I love getting arguments about 3-tier versus 2-tier. That was fantastic. Because I have analysts. So these market analysts who come in and write papers about you. You basically pay them to do so. And they're like, oh, that's never going to scale, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, really? And you do all the math in front of them and they're like, what? So. Analysts love databases. Is anyone else look at data freak like me? Yeah, that's amazing. So, very excited about data. I can't wait till we break through the terabyte. That's my big thing. Because terabyte was cool. Now it's peta. I'm gonna do it. We're on our way. We were doubling up on size every year. So we were at roughly 6, 13, 40. We're projecting 20 or 35 to 40 this year. My table's the biggest. All right, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. If you guys want to meet up, talk later at some point. I love meeting with everybody. These are great discussions. Maybe over at the shop or just on the road. So, thanks.